You know, the people in Europe have finally had enough. You wonder how long it'll take people in America to say enough is enough. But there was a political earthquake which shook dozens of countries in Europe this past weekend as voters there let the continent know they don't like the European Union.
One politician says the vote shows a complete loss of trust in the parties that support the EU. Dale Hurd has the story from Brussels.
First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they attack you, and then you win.
And that describes what has been happening in Europe over the past several years. European anger at the EU has been building and anti-EU parties have been growing. But they were mostly laughed at or ignored. Not anymore. Now the EU faces powerful political forces that want to destroy it, as UKIP's Nigel Farage told European reporters very plainly.
I don't just want Britain to leave the European Union, I want Europe to leave the European Union. I don't believe that flag, that anthem, and that president, whose name no one knows, really represent what Europe should be.
European voters have spoken very clearly that they want change. But the question is whether the elites in their own capitals and in Brussels will listen. And there's reason to believe that they won't. Because while the EU got trounced in two of Europe's largest and most important nations, Britain and France, in most of the EU, Europeans voted for the status quo. Doru Frantescu is policy director at Vote Watch Europe think tank.
The pro-European forces will still have a majority in the next European Parliament, even if this majority diminishes from about 72 to around 64% in the next Parliament.
The second reason Brussels is not likely to bend is that EU leaders have shown that they want more European Union and not less. Tighter integration, more laws, and more power to, as they would put it, solve Europe's problems. But last week's results show that the EU is the problem for voters in Britain and France, who see their nations being slowly taken over by EU laws. The first-place finish of Marine Le Pen's National Front Party had the French establishment in shock and the Hollande government in emergency meetings. The newspaper La Parisienne called the results the Big Bang. Le Pen told supporters, "Our people demand one policy only, a policy of the French for the French and with the French. They no longer want to be led from the outside." But what some have called the boldest, if not the biggest, political experiment in history, the European Union, will not be closing down just yet. And that's likely to mean that the forces opposing it have a bright future. Dale Hurd, CBN News, Brussels.
Well, what does it mean about America? I think it means that the voters are getting disgusted with overarching socialism and socialist nostrums that don't work. And the EU has been a foundering giant, and all those nations just didn't come together. I mean, they speak different languages, and all of a sudden you've got a common currency, and they're trying to put them all together, and they just aren't together, and they probably never will be. Well, in other news, the pregnant Christian woman sentenced to death in Sudan for apostasy is now a mother again. John Jessup has that story from Washington. Here's John.
Pat, that's right. Miriam Ibrahim gave birth to a baby girl early this morning while shackled to her prison floor. She'd been sentenced to death because she's refused to renounce her Christian faith. Ibrahim was also sentenced to 100 lashes for adultery. The courts don't recognize the 27-year-old's marriage to a Christian man because her father was Muslim. But he left the family when she was little, and she was raised Christian by her mother. Ibrahim has been in jail since February, and her first child, Martin, a 20-month-old, has been with her. Her husband is confined to a wheelchair. He said Miriam is chained at the ankles in her cell. Nigeria's military says it knows where the Islamic terrorist group Boko Haram is holding scores of abducted girls, but it has ruled out using force to rescue them. This as civilian groups are beginning to arm themselves against future attacks. George Thomas has that story.
Nearly 2 months after they were kidnapped, Nigeria's top military officer claims he knows the location of the missing girls.
The good news for the girls is that we know where they are, but we cannot tell you.
The girls, most of them Christians, were abducted from their school in Chibok in Nigeria's northern Borno state by the Islamist militant group Boko Haram.
We cannot come and tell you military secrets here. Just leave us alone. We are working. We will get the girls back.
Pentagon officials were not able to confirm his claims. Nigeria's defense minister says rescuing the girls by force would put their lives at risk.
Nobody should come and say the Nigerian military does not know what it is doing. We know what we are doing. We can't go and kill our girls in the name of trying to get them back.
Except for this video, which was released by the terrorist group, little is known about their whereabouts. In the video, the group's leader threatened to sell the girls if the government does not release Boko Haram fighters being held in prison. The US, UK and France have military and intelligence personnel on the ground in Nigeria searching for the girls. Meanwhile, in Borno State, the epicenter of Boko Haram's insurgency, civilians angry that their government isn't doing enough to provide protection are beginning to form their own security task force. Men armed with swords, bows and arrows, machetes and homemade guns have set up checkpoints in and out of the state. More than 470 have been killed since the girls were abducted 7 weeks ago. George Thomas, CBN News.
Pat, just last week the United Nations put Boko Haram on its terrorist sanctions list, but it seems too little too late.
What we need is a battalion of Delta Force troops as a strike force to go in there, and within about a week or so they would kill the leadership of Boko Haram. They know where they are. The Nigerians know where they are, and all it needs is some determined effort and they could take them out. But they say, oh, well, don't blame the military. But no, I think it's time that something got done, and that's how you do it. You go in and you just wipe out the leadership of that vicious organization that's terrorized those people. It's just that simple. And send a message throughout Nigeria. If any of the rest of you try it again, you're going to get killed. And once you do that, then those people shut up and go back to work. And that's what you need. They've got all those loudmouths out there shouting their slogans and waving their guns. But if a true military force that's well equipped goes in there, they can take them out, and it's one of those things that we're good at. And we have some superb fighting men and women who can go into a situation like that and take charge. John?
Pat, here at home, an embarrassing mistake by the Obama administration. It accidentally revealed the name of the CIA's top official in Afghanistan. The officer's name was sent out in an email to thousands of journalists when the president made a surprise Memorial Day visit to Afghanistan. The name was on a list of people who met with the president. White House officials realized the error after the list was sent to a Washington Post pool reporter representing the media. He then notified officials. The Post and other media organizations kept the name private. It's unlikely anyone from the White House will be prosecuted. Pope Francis has flown back to Rome after a 3-day tour of Jordan, Israel, and Bethlehem. He'll soon host a meeting at the Vatican with the Israeli and Palestinian presidents. But he left with a reminder that his efforts are spiritual, not political. Here's Chris Mitchell from Jerusalem.
Near the end of his visit, Pope Francis said Mass and greeted Christians at the Garden of Gethsemane.
I think he is a man that's going to do much good in uniting the churches.
During his visit, Pope Francis told the Christians living in Jerusalem he understood their difficulties and invited them to be courageous witnesses of the resurrection of Jesus. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told Francis Israel protects Christians.
We protect the rights of Christians in Israel. That, unfortunately, does not exist in many places in the Middle East. Even in Bethlehem, where Your Holiness visited, Jesus' birthplace has become a Muslim city.
Netanyahu also referred to the stop Pope Francis made at the security barrier between Bethlehem and Jerusalem.
When incitement and terror against Israel stops, there won't be a need for things like the security fence, which has saved thousands of lives.
On his way back to Rome, Pope Francis clarified his invitation to Israeli President Shimon Peres and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas to pray together at the Vatican.
It will be a prayer meeting. It will not be for mediation or to look for solutions. No, we will meet together to pray only, and then each one will return home. But I believe that prayer is important. Praying together without doing any sort of arguing, this helps.
The gathering is scheduled to take place in Rome in early June. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
The Pope announced that he'll also meet with a group of sex abuse victims next month at the Vatican, and he has declared, quote, zero tolerance for any member of the clergy who would violate a child. This will be Pope Francis's first meeting with victims of abuse. States across the country are facing new concerns that the costs will go up because of Obamacare. Medicaid is the health care safety net for low-income people, and states have to use their own money to help pay for it. Some liberal state governments chose to make Medicaid available to more people under Obamacare. Plus, previously eligible people are joining Medicaid in high numbers. That's because all Americans are required to have health insurance under Obamacare, but many states don't have the money to pay for rising Medicaid costs. Well, she's the oldest known person living in the U.S. Geraldine Talley turned 115 Friday. The Detroit Free Press reports that she believes in love and knowing God and trusting His will. She lives in Inkster, Michigan, and she attends the New Jerusalem Missionary Baptist Church, where she's been an active member through the years. She also ran a farm with her husband, and she says God has been good to her through the years. Pat, she also told the Detroit Free Press that her secret's pretty simple: treat others the way you want to be treated. And she also added, it's all in the good Lord's hands.
Well, God bless her. There's hope for all of us. I don't know if I want to go to 115. Would you?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she looks great. You know what? I would if I was healthy and had my mind. Yeah, that would be
healthy and well, she's got her mind and she's healthy.
Doing
and
great.
God bless her, the oldest living American, 115.
Congratulations.
Well, you know, it's 80's the new 60, and the fastest growing segment of the population are people over 80. So I mean, it's we're getting healthier. And, you know, diseases which used to kill people, we now have medical techniques that take care of them, and it's wonderful. So we're living longer, but we've got to adjust Social Security. We've got to adjust Medicaid. We've got to adjust all these programs that were based on people dying at 65. They don't die at 65 anymore, but whether they'll stay to 115, I don't know. I'm going to be around about 110. How about that?
You think so?
Well, Joshua did it.
Well, it's true.
If Joshua did it, you and I can do it. We'll go out together.
Okay.
All right.
Nearly 1/3 of all pregnancies in Detroit ends in abortion. The Detroit News reports the city's abortion rate has been climbing steadily over the years, and in 2012, it hit 31%. Public health officials are blaming rising poverty and limited access to affordable contraception. The chairwoman of the Department of Family Medicine at a leading Detroit hospital says we're seeing a picture that looks more like some third world country than someplace in the United States. The BBC is under fire in Britain because it considers the word girl too politically incorrect to use during a documentary on the Commonwealth Games athletic competition. The London Daily Mail reports the BBC removed the word from a soundbite by its anchor when he joked he didn't like being thrown down to the ground by a 19-year-old girl. But the BBC was afraid viewers might be offended by his use of the word girl, so the word was edited out when the documentary re-aired. Critics say it's another example of political correctness run amok. And one member of parliament says eventually people will be afraid to say anything for fear of violating political correctness. Well, you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.